Yeah, we're live. Still morning. It is 11:24. Hopefully everyone's doing well and you're getting your projects going. So morning motivation, still morning technically. Go get some projects done. And speaking of projects, that's what I want to talk about today is I want to talk about the 3800 V6. I've been waiting for a long time on one of our viewers that offered to do the heads, and I just can't wait anymore. So I'm going to have to go and get another set of heads and get those ported and get that situation taken care of, because that's what's holding me up right now. So I want to get that motor done, and so we can turn the boost up on it. But I want to talk a little bit about what it's going to be and what we've done to it and the changes I'm going to make, what has to be done before we run it, because it's time. It's just been sitting there. It's been sitting there for months and months and months, and it's just waiting on somebody to do something. I would pay for the heads, whatever I got to do to make it work, but it's just not happening. So I got to make it happen. So I've got to change. I'll have to get another set of heads. I probably will get the Series 3 motor, the L32. So we'll probably get those heads and then port those, and we'll, do what we can. Quite honestly, the going to the nth degree on getting this stuff, to quote David Freiberger, just don't have it right, just have it running. And so we need to get this motor running. So, we want to look back at, I'm going to show you guys some dyno results from when we ran this turbo before, because I started looking through this stuff this morning, and I just, it made me look longingly at what I already had. I should have just run what I already had. It was ready to go. The only thing I had to do is put good head gaskets on it, put head studs on it, and ring gap, and then the thing could have just run the way that it was, and we could have found whatever the limit was of some stock sort of thing, a piston or a rod with that combination. I didn't have to go all out and get a custom camshaft done and have custom ported heads and all that, and that combination already had ported heads on it. They were already done fairly well. No, they didn't flow 230, they flowed 220 or something. But still, that's more than enough. We're not using all of the head anyway. The making the power isn't going to be the concern with the big bang motor. It's nice to make more power at a lower boost level, but quite honestly, if we just turn the turbo up, we have all of the power that we could possibly need to get this thing done and make it work. So that's the new direction for that. So what I have to get for the 3800 is, I think I have head studs. It's been so long, I need to look through my stuff now. I have another cam for it. I need to get 1.9 rockers from the guys at ZZP, because the camshaft that I had done has a lower lobe lift. So the 1.9 rockers will bring it up to an area that I want, because that's one of the other changes that I wanted to make. I wanted to get the thing closer to 600 lift than 500 lift and get it to make power. But again, quite honestly, even that ZZP cam, the 220, 230, no intercooler required. Even that camshaft, that combination was making enough power for us to multiply and make the power that we need. In fact, we could have easily been near, I think, a 2-bar. If this thing was making over 250, I think. NA, let's see where we were at. Yeah, we were at 267 NA. So if you start multiplying that out, those are pretty good numbers. So it's over 800 at 2-bar boost. At 20, if we were going to run 29 pounds, I'd like to get the thing closer to 300 if that's possible. That would be nice. Then our multiplier would be even more. But the interesting thing is this thing, and I'm going to show you guys the dyno graph here. I'll show you the turbo dyno graph here. Turn my camera around. So I hope you guys can see this. So what we have down here is, this is the NA power curve down here, horsepower and torque, where it made, that's 267. This is the NA torque curve. This is the power curve right here, this blue line at like 7.6 pounds, and then the corresponding torque curve there. See, everything's crossing at 52. And this next one is the power curve at 14.5 pounds. And again, the crossover there, and this is the attending torque curve there. So you can see it's just NA 7.5 pounds, 14.5 pounds. And you can kind of see that this is the great thing about boost is like, hey, look, 7.5 pounds, lots of power, 14.5 pounds, even more power. But the thing we're going to talk about right now is our multiplier effect. You know, whenever I do this, I always talk about the fact that if you take the NA power and multiply it by, you know, half a bar or 1 bar, like you should be able to double the power output at 1 bar of boost, so 14.7 pounds. Now, we didn't do that. Let's see here. 612, and we went from 267. So we went from 267 to 612 at 14.5 pounds of boost. So we did better, better than our formula. And that's why I like this combination. And like I said, that we could have got to some pretty big power numbers doing it in this manner, because if we gained, what was it? That was 612, right? 612, 267. So we gained 345 horsepower with 14 pounds of boost. So, you know, if if our math continued, which maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't, I think that we ran this. I'm sure that we had to have run this on E85, which is probably why we have a better, well, we have such good gains here. Yeah, I didn't put it in the notes, but I'm 100% sure that this thing was on E85. So running E85, you know, if we gain another 345 horsepower at 14 pounds of boost at 2 bar, that puts us, you know, up over 900 horsepower. In fact, closer to 950. Whether or not it gets there, I don't think it will. Honestly, I think that something's going to break before that. But it would be very cool that if it did. And if it did, and then I had to turn it up even more, then we could get to 1,000 horsepower. And maybe we'll see something even better. This is with the little GT45 turbo. But what I would like to do is, I'm going to go ahead and I was going to switch to live chat, but we don't need to do that yet. But if I put and we will certainly have to, if we want to get to 900 horsepower, we certainly have to change the turbo. And so what I would do is put one of Iron's 78, 75 Gen 2s that I have, the S475 that I have 3 of those. One of those is a T6 from Summit. I wouldn't use that. The T4 versions that I have that I run as twins on the Big Bang motors on the other V8s. One of those would probably be very well or work very well. And I'd like to kind of try both of them and see if at the same boost level, one of them, and I also have one from Robert at Force Performance. I think I should try that as well, because that's another good one. We ran that on the K24. So shout out to Robert. He does really good stuff over there. That might be another interesting one to try. So what I do is pick the one that at 14.5 pounds, let's say, makes the most power. If there is one, or if there is really a discernible difference. But this would be an interesting test to try all of these on and see if one of them does something that the others don't do. You know, run within the turbo would be at the same position. These might have different, these are probably going to have different V-band flange and exhaust sides, which could help things. But it would be interesting. That would be an interesting test. And I've done that turbo test we did that on the K24. So I'll look back on that data and see if we can see if I can get a direction there. But I have lots of good turbos to try. They could put this thing up, you know, we could go to 1,000 horsepower if we wanted to do that. And then the other changes I have for it is on this one, I just was blowing through using the blower basically as the upper intake manifold. We had the factory lower blower manifold, the short runner deal. And the reason that I did that, because we also have the NA versions and we've run those, but I wanted to do the lower blower one with the short runner deal to get rid of some of the torque. We just care about the peak number for the Big Bang motor. We know that we can add torque with these longer runner ones. I want to do that. But the other thing that I'm going to do that I already have is I have a 90-degree elbow with a big throttle body on it. And then I'm just going to make an adapter flange, a plate that bolts that onto the factory blower manifold. And so it'll just bolt, you know, it's just easy, 4 bolts, and it'll just hold that in place. That will work good. And then that way I'll be able to mount the turbo and blow through from the front rather than, because this is a transverse mounted motor, you know, it's a front wheel drive. So when we're running it on the dyno, the inlet for the throttle body going into the blower or for this turbo application when we're using the blower housing is in the back. And so it gets busy trying to get the inlet in to go into that with the inlet tubing, the blow off valve, and all that stuff, because the how close everything is right behind the dyno. So if I can have that aimed toward the front, which is very easy to do, then we can, you know, make some good things work there. So head gasket, head studs, which I think I have the head studs from ARP already. You just need to get I need some MLS head gaskets. Might have the thing surfaced. I got to port a set of heads. I think I already have another set of valve springs for it. We're running 26-918s on it, the LS Beehive springs. And then put the cam, get some rockers for it. And then I also have to do the ring gap on it. I have not done the ring gap on it. And we will do that so we can get that running and hopefully, you know, get this thing done and make some power, find out how much power it does. Don't go around tonight. Let's see what you guys got going on. Let's see. Okay, if the 3800 V6 turbo made 612 horsepower at 14.4 psi, will it make over 900 horsepower at 20 psi before it breaks? So see you guys, how you guys are feeling. If you're feeling spunky this morning. So we'll get some comments and then I can switch over to the live chat. Good morning, 3800 dual 90s. Yeah. Poor man's 3800 V6 turbo. Houston's in the house. Admiral, so you want to see two M90s? Two M90s on the V8 would be good. And if we do that and it is successful, then we have to put twin turbos on it because it's got to be, we got to go all Pro Street on it. And then I got to put nitrous on it too. 3800 update. Could you run low boost with stock injectors less than 10 psi? I don't remember what size the stock injectors are. I don't think, I can't remember what the stock size injector is on the 3800. But guys run on the supercharged runs, run 10 pounds with the blower on them. So that's not a problem. Let's see. It says L67 injectors are 36 pounds. So probably not. I would want something bigger than that. That's only 432 horsepower NA. So that's not really big enough for what we're talking about. Look at the ZZP turbo cams. One ST5 is one many of us run 600, 700 wheel horsepower. I don't like the turbo cams that are reverse split. That, in my opinion, is not the way to go. Put a turbo 3800 in an old 80s Grand Am. Yep. How did the 99 to 04 Ford Mustang 3800 V6 engines compare to the 3800? I don't know. I'd never run one of those. If you're using NA style intake manifold, they say the NA heads are less likely to be cracked. I'm not worried about cracking the head. What VS Racing turbo is the closest to the GT45? I don't know. That'd be a good question for Byron. I'm sure that what he has in something that's going to be like a 69 millimeter impeller, it might be better than a GT45. Richard, I saw you on an old comp cams video from 2015 talking to a guy about TCI flex plates. Yeah, I did some stuff for them back when they were doing their own, they had their own media channel. And so I'd walk around and do interviews with guys. Yeah, the supercharger, but the turbo seems fun. Yeah, any kind of boost is good. I prefer a supercharger on a 3.8 liter. That's good. You get to. That's the great thing about being in America is you get to choose. Yeah, there's not going to be. If you look at the torque curve of the turbo versus the torque curve of the supercharger, you're really not going to be lacking anything. Would the 3800 be a good choice for a newer? I don't know about a newer Jeep. Doesn't a newer Jeep already have a good motor in it? Richard, the 3800 intake is symmetrical. Can you run it either way? We couldn't with, I don't think we could with the accessories the way that we had it set up. Maybe you'll reach 900 by increasing compression. Why? I don't understand. Why would we want to do that? There's no reason to increase the compression. We're not at a limit for making power. The turbos, we have, more than 1,000 horsepower with the turbo. So more power is just this. On a Gen 2 LT1, fuel injectors are 24 pounds. Will 42-pound ones fit in the fuel rail? I'm sure that there are bigger. If I remember, in the fuel injectors are that's like a standard size injector in the LT1, if I remember right. And so there are lots of injectors that will fit in there. You could fit. They have them all the way up to 2,000 cc's if you want for that. There needs to be a maybe option. Yeah, it's always maybe. Just did an eighth pull. It needs more fuel after 6,000. That's good. Timing was 5 degrees. Timing was 5 degrees. The ignition timing was 5 degrees. It's got to be more. It's got to be higher than that, right? Not 5 degrees total. That's what we're trying to find out. Somebody asked if the bottom end will handle 900 horsepower. We don't know. That's what we're trying to find out. We want to see what the strength of the stock bottom end is, like what the breaking point is. That's what the Big Bang testing is all about. Swap an RSX Type S into a sedan and make it pass bar. How do you go around the gas tank, or can I run the stock gas tank? I don't know, but I don't know exactly what the rules are. So you have to find somebody else that's more knowledgeable than that. You have to run all of the emissions equipment from the vehicle of the engine that you take it out of has to be in the car that you swap it into. So all of the EGR, all the way that they route everything, including return back to the gas tank and all that stuff, has to be there. Salvador, I don't want a head that's already cracked from the junkyard. That's true. But honestly, if it has a little crack in it, I don't care. It's not going to hurt anything. James, are you proceeding on the 3800 without ported heads? No, we're going to do another. I'm just going to do another set of ported heads. What made the turbo Grand National engine so dominant over similar designs? The turbo is what did it. Otherwise, it's not a. It was not. I mean, like the heads don't flow very well. The cam was very mild. The intake manifold was not great. It has a lot of things that were not fantastic about it. But the aftermarket jumped on it because it had the ability to make lots of power because it was a factory force induction motor. Camaro LT1, can you put LS6B have springs with offset keepers and a stock iron head? I don't know. I've never scienced that out to measure it to see. Back in the early 80s, some Jeeps had 3800 engines. They wouldn't have been this 3800 Series 2 then. They would have been 3.8 liters, not like this motor. It had 5 degrees total. It shouldn't be making any power at 5 degrees of timing. Is the 3800 in the rear-wheel drive F bodies? It is the same. It's the NA version, so it's not the same as the supercharged ones. But in the front-wheel drive ones, they also have NA versions, and that block in the F body is the same as those. Intake temperature was 101. That's good. Well, depending on ambient. If ambient was 32, that's a little high, but depending on what ambient was. The Camaro V6 uses the same bell housing. That's the bell housing that we use on the engine dyno. The rear-wheel drive 3800 has a different intake manifold. Yeah, the Camaro one is different. It's cast aluminum. All the ones that I tried were I tried all the composite ones from the front-wheel drive stuff. So we could go to live chat and see what's up there. Our poll: 3800 V6 turbo makes 612 horsepower at 14.4 pounds. Will it make over 900 at 29 psi before it breaks? 61% saying yes. So we've got 2/3 on the positive side there. I'm happy to hear that there is movement on the 3800 Big Bang. What timing did you use for wide open throttle? These were run at the 18 degrees of total timing under boost. Turbo Centra, it's 45 degrees today. I had knock and it pulled the timing. Well, good. That's you want it to be safe. Do you have a good air source going into the turbo? Like, do you have a cold air induction in the turbo? It's not just an open turbo like in the engine compartment, right? Because that's not good. 8V, it's going to make 890 then break. That's still a win. We're okay with that. Any ideas on how to get the most out of a rear mounted turbo system? Yeah, you just install it and put boost to your motor, and then good things happen. What gives up first? It won't be a gasket. It won't be an MLS gasket. Not with the MLS gaskets and head studs. It'll be something. The thing that will break will be something in the bottom end. It'll be a piston or a rod. So the supercharger from the front wheel drive engine will fit the rear wheel drive engine. Well, it will physically bolt on there, meaning that the heads are the same. They line up. But here are a couple things that to be concerned about. The cylinder heads, although the intake ports all match up and stuff, on the NA motors and on the supercharged motors, the injectors are in different spots. On one, they're in the head, and on one, they're on the intake. So you need to make sure that you have the right one. So if you're doing a 3800 swap, most guys on an NA motor, most guys do what's called a top swap. So they'll swap the heads, the intake manifold, the blower, all that stuff. The other thing you have to consider is the opening of like I was talking about, the opening of the throttle body is going to be at the firewall on your motor. It's not going to be up front. So that might be problematic on the F body. Front-wheel drive versus rear-wheel drive, the water outlets are usually on the wrong end. I thought that there was something stopping me from flipping the NA intakes around. Is there basic formula you use for AFR under boost? Yeah, it needs to be 11.5 to 1. I don't think main caps are almost never a problem. It's not usually ever a block or a crank. I don't know, on a V6 motor, the crank maybe may jump into the Royal Rumble there, but usually it's a rod or a piston. If I break a ring trying to add ring gap or take off too much by accident, should I go OEM or total seal ring? You could probably find more spare rings just in the wrecking yard. Just go grab a couple of pistons or whatever and just take the rings off them. They may just give them to you at the wrecking yard, quite honestly. But you can either OEM or total seal, and I would only get one. I'd get one set and put one ring in there. Have you drawn up any plans for the twin turbo for the twin M90s? I already had a rough idea of what we wanted to do when I started doing the single one. What was the AR on the turbo that you use on it? I don't know what it is. I don't remember what it is on the GT45. Move your accessories if they're in the way. Flipping the NA intake manifold. I don't want to run the NA intake manifold. It's not a good idea. It's not what I want. The blower manifold is what I want for this particular application, because we don't want runner length in it. We want to kill the low speed torque. Rubbish. Yeah, it needs to be. It could be 11. It could be 11.5, but it doesn't. You shouldn't have it leaner than that. Just that's a safe area. Burns is in the house. Burnsy. 62% saying yes. I'm liking that. If they're readily available aluminum heads for the 3800, I put one in a BMW. It's a good engine. The BMW 6-cylinder inline 6-cylinders are also pretty good, but I don't know how expensive they are to work on. I think guys are already, like the guy had mentioned, I think the guys in Australia are already making pretty big power from these things, from stock bottom end stuff. And I don't know if the L32 is any better than the L67 in terms of the bottom end. I don't know if there's more strength there or not. What do you think about a Mercedes V6? I don't know. I don't know anything about them. I've never run any of them. Any sort of, I mean, if it's a Mercedes deal, any sort of factory supercharged or turbocharged motor is going to probably work pretty well. They have plenty of strength. Artec, they're the same crank. 67 and a 32 are. So guys are making lots of power with them. %63 saying yes. We like the boost. It would be nice to get rid of the accessories on this, because then the thing would make more power. L32 and 67 are the exact same bottom end. The later 67s are. So I should just get an L32 to be safe anyways. I kind of want to get another one of those motors anyway, and if I have to get a set of heads for it, I might as well just get the whole motor. Steve, a 3800. A 3800 with a turbo, I mean, this is, you could do this obviously with a, since you can go get a J series Honda from the wrecking yard, J series Honda is a better motor than this. So if you get even a 3.2 liter, which there's lots of those there, if you get one of those and add boost to it, this kind of power is not hard at all. Richard, what car are you putting a 3800 into? I'm not putting it in anything. I'm just running it on the dyno. Robert, diamond piston makes a 9.5 to 1. Is this for the 3800, Robert? 9.5 to 1 to 8.5 to 1. Are you wanting to run? Let me guess, you're trying to run this on pump gas too. So you're going to try to stuff 29 pounds into a 3800. I'm not going to try to immediately run 29 pounds. What we're going to do is turn it up until we find a breaking point. So whatever that is, maybe it goes over 29 pounds, in which case I better have a 4-bar map sensor, right? The rods and pistons are different in the L67, lower compression. It is different, right? The 32 is a little bit higher. Like to see a turbo setup on a 3800 4th gen F body. Well, that motor, it has higher compression. The NA motor does. It has a good intake manifold. If you put a turbo on that thing, it would make good power. It would do what we're doing here. And there are cams for them. You can obviously port the head. That's the same kind of head. They won't take much. That they're limited to 25 pounds. Well, they're not limited in boost. They don't know what boost is. What they know is what torque is. And so 25 pounds on a stock motor is different than 25 pounds on a modified motor that's making 100 more horsepower or 50 or 60 more foot-pounds than a stock one does, because that 25 pounds would be multiplied by all that. So it would be different. Would you boost an NA motor with 12.5 to 1 compression? Yeah, racers do high compression boosted stuff all the time with lots and lots of octane and lots of intercooling. And usually those guys that are doing that are also running it on methanol. Do you know why extreme energy? I don't know why. Do you know why extreme energy hydraulic roller cams seem to have less lift than flat tappet cams? I didn't know that was actually a thing. So I don't know why they did it. So Robert, why are you deciding you want to run 14? What's the 14-pound number? If you're deciding on what you want to do with a boosted motor, you should pick either a target power output or maybe a quarter mile thing or something. A boost target usually gets people into trouble. Running air fuel at 10.5 to 1, that's pretty rich. And you can get into problems by running it too rich too. But you can run. Are you running it at 91 octane or 93 octane? I just don't know. You're gonna have to juggle stuff. If you go 9.5 to 1 instead of 8.5 to 1, you're probably gonna have to run less timing because pump gas is gonna limit that. So any gain that you would get from 9.5, you're gonna get more low speed response. So it should help with turbo spool if it's a turbo. But you're gonna have to take timing away from it. So some of that gain is gonna be negated. I don't know what the what the gain is, how much it is, in that area when you adjust all of that. Truth, on a stock 3800, a GT35. So did yours break because it detonated, or what do you think caused that at 25 pounds? What are the rods and pistons made of on the 3800? Glass, probably. Probably. No, there's guys running lots of power on the stock stuff. L32 is a hypertechnic piston. and a centered forged powdered rod. That's what most of the factory stuff is. Do you like Summit Pro LS rods and piston combos? Yeah, they work good. How important is balancing the crank instead of just replacing the rod and piston? You can't take a forged rod and a forged piston and combine it with a stock crank and not rebalance everything. You're going to have to rebalance it, because the forged rod and forged piston are going to be, unless they've found a way to exactly match the piston weight of the forged one versus the cast one that you just took out, and that exactly match the rod, which is just not going to happen. If you're putting rods and pistons in it, you have to rebalance it. Are you familiar with the 89 Turbo TA? Oh, that's for somebody else. Okay. The rods broke. Yeah. 500 wheel horsepower, mostly trying to lower the intake charge temperature. What you should do is improve the power output of the NA motor and not do it with compression. I mean, you can do it with compression, but porting the head and camshaft will help you get there a lot easier. Banks, I don't know why I can't answer for comp cams as to why they would do that. If you want to lower the charge temperature, also intercooler, a much better intercooler. AJ, people tend to put bigger bores in things that they want to rev and or that you want to get more head flow from, which is kind of why they do that. In the RPM range that we're running most of these street motors and things that we're talking about, that doesn't make any difference at all. It makes this much. The displacement makes the difference. Do rings spin around in the pistons? Yes, they do. Which I wanted to show that test. I wanted to put the rings in and mark them on the pistons and then run the motor and then take the head off and then show where the new ring position is so that people could see, hey, look, because we always get wrapped up in when we're assembling these motors. Like when I do ring gap is a perfect example, or when you're putting brand new rings in, you gap them and then install the rings, and then you orient the rings and put the piston in so that they're not like lined up with the thrust or whatever. But the reality is that that's not going to matter because they're going to rotate, and they rotate as soon as you do that. So really, I try not to line the rings up, and I try to orient them the way that they tell you to do in the book. But still, again, they may at some point just get together, because I don't know if I don't know if the top and the first and second ring, if they rotate like in unison exactly the same all the way around. I don't see how they could. Maybe they do. I just don't know. I've never had anybody tell me that, hey, look, when we've done this, we have taken this thing apart, and after this many cycles or whatever, after we did a break-in, whatever their science was, we did this, and the top ring rotated this many times. I don't know how they could tell that, but the top ring rotated to this position after how many ever turns it did, and the second ring rotated to this position. So, do they line up? Do they crisscross? What happens? I don't know, and I don't know if you could see that unless you had like an in-cylinder like viewing port or something. Are there updates on the Slant 6? I haven't done anything. I haven't even looked at the Slant 6 in a long time. Richard, I'd like to see a video about reading spark plugs the old way, an all-inclusive educational video with tips and tricks on indexing, heat ranges, modifications, and ground shafts. Please see all the spark plug tests the videos I just put up recently. Heat ranges, All I would be able to do is give you a recommendation to go to a colder plug when you do a turbo application. Modifications to the ground strap, you don't need to do any of that. What you need to do is you need to get the spark plug to fire. And so you need to bring the key to doing that on a turbo application is run the smaller gap and put a better coil in it if your coil is not doing it, and or increase the dwell time on the coils that you're using. Multiple coils help better, work better, especially at high RPM. They work much better because of the rise time. But most modern vehicles like yours and an LS and Hemis and Coyotes, they have multiple coils. You can adjust the dwell, certainly can on an aftermarket ECU. Put 18 or 19 thousandths plug gap in it. Indexing the plugs does nothing. So there you go. There are your tips and tricks. According to Total Seal, it's random. Sometimes they can line up, but usually only momentarily. They have to if they rotate, and I don't see how they can rotate at the same speed. But I also would like to see how they decide. Like, I would like to know how many times they spin around during a run around town or during a quarter mile pass or whatever. I don't know how fast they rotate, but it'd be cool to see that. Next time you're at the wrecking yard, pick up a motor that already has 9.5 to 1. Yeah, just get an NA version. But I would put L32 heads on it and not L67 heads on it. And I've wanted to do a test on that. I'd wanted to do a short block swap to see what the compression ratio does, to see if we go from 8.5 to 9.5, what does it do to power? Eric, we're sorry to hear you're in the hospital, man. Build an Audi 5-cylinder. No, that's not going to happen. Indexing plugs is useful in older engines. I would disagree with that. The only time that we ever index plugs, even on older engines, is when you have a big dome and you don't want the dome to hit the ground strap. That's when we index plugs. Indexing a plug to cure or improve ignition efficiency, I don't see how that's going to work unless your coil or distributor or ignition energy is insufficient. Maybe even then, I don't know how that's going to help things. I'd like to see it actually tested at an SAE level so somebody could show me what's going on there. I'm curious, what's the most horsepower per liter you've ever seen on pump gas? I don't know. I never tried to do the maximum amount of power on pump gas. I don't feel that those are good things. If you're trying to do the maximum amount of power, you should run the fuel that would allow you to do the maximum amount of power. I used to make perfect circle piston rings. Turbo 3800 Fiero. I agree. The 3800 swaps in the Fiero, I think, is pretty cool. Is water mesh still beneficial with the E85? Well, it would help. It would still help cool the charge and suppress detonation if you're getting into that detonation area. You have to use supercharged heads unless you have ZZP modified supercharged intake. Then you can run NA heads. You can do both. You just have to change the fuel rail. Rule of thumb for colder plugs, depending on the amount of boost, for example, 1 heat range colder for every PSI. I don't know that that's a thing. We run cold plugs. We run a 9 or a 10 on boosted stuff. Sometimes we run a 7 or an 8. And it honestly doesn't make any difference. If we're running high boost stuff, we put a really cold plug in it. But I don't think that that's an absolute thing. Supposedly NA engine supercharged gains 5% over supercharged short block. That seems like a lot. Normally one compression point is between 3 or 4% of the NA power is what compression normally does. But it'd be interesting to see. Is there a benefit to trucks having an unequal length cross pipe coming from the driver's side versus the cars that are equal length? I just don't see why GM trucks don't have equal length to the factory OI pipe. I think you're worried about the wrong thing. I don't think that's going to be I don't think that's going to change anything. What about a GoFundMe so you can test the Australian slant six head? That would be cool. I wonder how much that costs. Though I have an Australian slant six intake manifold. We were talking 3800 GM because injectors go into the ports on the supercharged heads. Yes, they do. They're in the head, and then they're in the intake on the NA versions. But we just plug them when we swap them. Have ZZP loan you an LSJ build? No, thank you. Anyone Tesla swap a Corvette? 862 versus 706. Those are the same head. My grandma had a supercharged 3800 Park Avenue, little lady from Pasadena. They are good. They felt good. The supercharged motors work good. We have there are a couple of guys from West Tech that come in with Fiero swap deals. And I always liked them. I always kind of was a fan of the Fiero stuff. They just never had the right engine combination, in my opinion. It should have been a quad 4. A quad 4 Fiero from the factory would have been cool, especially like a 200 horsepower one. That's what that thing needed. The truth. We already answered that question. So please don't let me see that appear again. 2,200 pound quad 4 Fiero. That would have been cool. I have a GTP sitting here with a supercharger planning to build a ladder car like an Ariel Atom. That would be cool. Yes, if you get the thing to be 1,000 pounds or something. The 862 and 706 heads are the same. As I said, they're the same head. They just have a different casting number on them. They just cast differently. They make exactly the same power. Yeah, the LS4 is the front wheel drive one. They have good heads on them though. They got a terrible intake manifold on them, and there's a lot of other stuff that's completely different. So I wouldn't recommend it for a project. What's the max boost you saw in a Gen 5 blower before it stopped making power? I haven't ever done that. Guys have spun them really, really fast after they've done porting and cut off the inlets and made bigger inlets on them, and some guys have changed cases and all kinds of stuff, and spun them to 20,000 RPM. How good are Coyote heads? Vary, and ported ones even more so, but even the stock ones are really good. I used to have a 2,400 pound V6 Fiero. It was great for autocross, mediocre at drag racing. Did it have the stock motor in it? Monza Racer. Yeah, Turbo Quad 4 stuff is good. GM obviously did lots of stuff with the guys from Batten and who was the other guy? Trying to think of his name. Somebody remind me. The guys that did the Aerotech stuff. Fueling, I think was the other guy, yeah. It's a Holley Super Sniper 1250 throttle can be safe for my 6-liter turbo LS of 14 pounds on 95 octane without an intercooler. I wouldn't recommend running anything at 14 psi without an intercooler, and I would recommend E85 if you were going to do that, even as a blow-through thing. And I don't know how well those throttle bodies work boosted. I did not watch the Leno video about the 442. I need to do that. I can tell you that every time we've tried indexing plugs on the dyno, it just showed no power. So, I mean, after you try something 10 or 20 times, you just stop looking for power there. I know guys want it to be something, but it's not somewhere I look for power. LS4 King had a starter relocate for that. That's cool. I think a twin turbo 3800 V6 like F body would be cool. So when we're running 29 PSA, I don't know. I don't even know it'll get that to that. We're just going to run the boost up and find out what it will do, how much it will take. So you weren't here for the beginning, Larry, when we were talking about all this. So we're down to 59%. People are losing. People are losing confidence. I don't know that it'll get to 900 horsepower either, but you know, you don't know. This is one of those things like with the first Big Bang LS that you just kind of hold your breath on. When we did that first 4.8, I'm like, there's no way it can take this much boost. I said, oh yeah, I came to party. Let's go. And running good fuel in it and running, because I don't think we haven't run ice water in it or anything. So it's going to make even more power. This new combination should make even more power at the same boost level. $612. We're already running E85. The intercooler is probably going to add. So we could be over 650 or 660 maybe on E85 with an ice water and the air to water intercooler, and then with the mods that we have in mind for the 3800. I don't know if the motor mounts are the same, Barry. I don't know if that's true. They look like they're the same type of motor mount on the block. I just don't know if their positioning is relative to the front or back of the block. What makes people think boosts make a set power according to the turbo size? But for a lot of people, the thing that they see is the boost gauge. And if they've never been on a dyno, if you're out running it on the street or whatever, you're like, yeah, my thing, I ran 12 pounds on my car. That's all that they know. And that's good information. I mean, if you don't have anything else, you know that that's the case. Hopefully they would also know the air fuel, and they'd also know the timing, because those are critical things and those all go together for longevity. But if you've never been on it, even on a chassis dyno, and you've run these things, you just have no way of knowing what that is. All you can say is, yeah, my whatever 3400 Grand Am, I ran 10 pounds on it. Okay, that's cool. And that's a success. If you did that and you can keep doing it and it keeps not blowing up, that's obviously good. Complete different engine for the Hemi 6 in Australia. Yeah, the Hemi one is different than this Slant 6. Monza, a 5.3 with a cam in it and a Trailblazer SS intake manifold will make way more than 400 horsepower. That 1839 cam is not that big, but even then, that's enough. So what is that? What's the duration on the 1839 cam? Let's see. Why are you guys showing me lift? I don't care about lift. We don't care about lift. I need the duration F50 number. That tells me everything about the cam that I need to know. 220, 224. Yeah, that's big enough. Yeah, you'll make over 400 with that. Can you get your hands on a new LS 3.6 liter 4-cylinder? That's not a real thing yet. So until it is a real thing, obviously we can't use it. The last guy I talked to said you should make 500 wheel horsepower at 20 psi. So that's 1.5. 500 wheel horsepower? That would mean that for that to happen, that would mean that your NA sensor motor is making 200 at the tire. That's probably not accurate. It's good that the turbo, whatever turbo that is, will support 500 wheel horsepower. So it could be like a GT3582, which should kind of do that. But just because the turbo will support that doesn't mean it's going to happen at that boost level on that engine. Yeah, 220, 224 is enough to make that kind of power. We run lots of cams that are in that range. In fact, I think I'm sure that one of these, oh, that was a 4.8 though. I'm trying to remember a 220 cam. I don't run a lot of stuff that has 220, 224. Kind of sounds like one of the trick flow cams that I ran way back. Trailblazer SS should free up some horsepower. It's going to be a lot better than the LS4 intake manifold, and a little bit better on a cammed 5.3 than a truck intake manifold. He was saying the base horsepower doesn't mean anything. So ask him if you can put that turbo on a GoPed and see if it will make 500 at the tire. So when you use an extreme example like that, that usually gets people thinking, but he's 100% wrong. It makes a big difference as to what the power is going to occur at what boost level. And the NA power determines that. Dude, a 500 horsepower GoPed would be sick. Tom wants to know who worked on roots blowers in Middle Tennessee area. He's got a 671 Wyand. Does anybody have any ideas for him out there? In that video, the Leno video, you got to drive one of the homologation cars. Oh, cool. I guess Oliver got his 305 Nova running, which is very, very cool. A shout out to Oliver. Well, Michael, we wouldn't have to spin the GoPed motor at 20,000. We just use nitrous to get the turbos spooled up. Sean, why do we want to put a bag of ice on the intake while we're dynoing? We used to do that a lot at the drag strip. AJ, you need to finish asking whatever question that is. Turbocentra, it made 143 wheel horsepower stock. That's actually pretty good. It made 15 psi. It made 275. So right what the formula suggests. That's good. Yeah, so Turbocentra, so at 15 psi, it makes 275. So with another 5 psi, it's going to make another 225 horsepower. That'd be a neat trick, right? That'd be one heck of a, that'd be a turbo with a like 75 or 100 shot. So 143 divided by 14.7. So that's making near 10 horsepower per pound of boost. AJ, what's better, 90-degree V angle or 60-degree V angle? So what's better for what? Is it better for packaging? Is it better for weight? Is it better for power? Is it better for harmonics? Is it better for fuel mileage? Is it what is your thing? So just so you know, in the future, when you ask questions, there's no absolute thing. Well, one is not always in every way better than everything else. That's just not reality. Yeah, math is hard for some people. Host 305, if a turbo can go 900, well, we have turbos that can easily go support way over that. We have stuff that can go into 4 digits, but the question is, will the stock rod and stock piston last at that corresponding torque number? Danny, so what's your question about your 247, 261 cam? Did I miss something else that happened beforehand? We got 2 more minutes. Hurry up and get your questions in. 58% saying yes, 42% saying no. We were real positive, and then we started slipping a little bit. So we're going to end our poll there. Danny, that's the K-Tech LS7 time attack camshaft. Okay, did you have a question about it? Monza, will the 4T80E, is that transmission strong enough for the stuff that you're talking about there? Came across an AMC Gremlin. That's already awesome. Mint condition with a bad motor. Thinking of a 4200 with a manual. Can you get a flywheel for that engine? Yes. What did we run? We had a flywheel on that. I think Mark up there in Canada has flywheels for those. I will be back tonight. And also, Gene, on the 4200, make sure that it fits like this way. the height on that thing with the oil pan and up to the valve cover and stuff and the intake manifold, it's fairly high. So make sure that all of that fits. The length shouldn't be a problem because I think that those Gremlins, weren't they available with inline 6 cylinders? Had a guy that once tried to argue with me that putting an expansion chamber on 2-stroke diesel would double the torque claim. That'd be nice. That's a really, I think you could sell a lot of those expansion chambers if you double the torque output. Daryl, so what is your arithmetic there? This 3800 V6 only made 267 NA, but then made 612 at 1 bar. It has a 6 in it now. Okay, I thought that they had inline 6s in them. And didn't the Pacer also have an inline 6 in it? Gremlin 4.2 crank and stuff in the 4. Okay. Brandon, who I like, he's good people, has pushed his near stock 80E with turbo LS4 into the 10s. Well, that's enough. I would like one of those. That was actually one of my favorite cars that a guy brought out to the Silver State. There's been a lot of really cool ones. I mean, there's been Porsche 959s and Ferrari Boxers and Indy cars and Cup cars and all kinds of crazy stuff. One of my favorites was the guy that brought an AMC Pacer out. The little fishbowl car is really cool. The Gremlins had 301s in them. You could get Gremlins with 5 liters in them. I remember because a guy at my high school had one, and it even had factory traction bars on it. Pacer got the 258. Think about that. That's it. It broke a Pacer rear window. Those things are probably worth gold now. 301s, 304s, yeah. It just had 5 liter on it. They did have 401s also. But I don't think that did the Gremlins, could you get a Gremlin with that? With the big motor? Big throaty one? I had a Camaro back in high school. I never raced him in it. He was a cool guy. I played baseball with him, but I never raced him. I never asked him how fast it was. I don't know if the Sprint had enough power to turn an all-wheel drive unit. But it would be cool to see it do a smoky 4-tire burnout. You just have to put lots of grease and stuff on the tires. Fill them up to, you know, 300 or 400 PSI. Oh, Spirit. Yeah, Spirit makes more sense. You get the grabber pack gremlin with a 401. Oh, that would be cool. I like those too. Didn't they have a really cool one on the old Pink show? Wasn't there one that was like fuzzy on the outside, like a woolly mammoth or something like that? I thought I remember one of those. And it was pretty fast. And it was pretty unique looking too. Yeah, Pink's was back in the day. I remember talking to Rich at one of the SEMA shows before the show became a show, when he was pitching this to a bunch of people. And my buddy Bernie and I walked by, and he grabbed us and was talking to us about it. And I told him I thought it was a great idea. I thought this. I said, guys should really like this. People love drag racing. We're both kind of road racers, and so nobody even wants to talk to us normally. But for a drag racing thing, I thought it was a pretty good idea. BFI Speed built an LS Pacer. That would be good. Danny, you don't understand. So I'll try to answer your what specs don't you understand on the lift, the duration, the LSA? I'm trying to scroll back and see. $247, $261, $670 lift, $112. The 2 is going to be either a +2 or a -2. I've never run that camshaft, so I don't know how well it does. Is the dreaded 500 horsepower block splitting territory in a 5-liter really closer to 400 horsepower with the tires? We've run them lots higher than that. Woolly Mammoth. Oh, it was a Vega wagon. Okay. Gremlin X, the Pacer X both had small block V8s with factory dual exhaust, 4-speed sticks and posies. Yeah. I've never done any work on a Studebaker. Recal. Okay, guys. I can stay here all day, but at last, I have stuff to do. Thank you guys all for showing up. I will see you all tonight. Bam, 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 bam.